David Stovall, Associate Professor, Educational Policy Studies, African American Studies, University of Illinois at Chicago.
All right. And how long have you been teaching?
I've been here 15 years.
Okay. And what introduced you into the teaching world?
I was actually doing my actual experience from teaching actually comes by way of community organizations. So people who are working with young folks' families to address their needs. So I started that work actually in Champaign. And when I was working with a group of folks called the African American Community Empowerment Program, and they had some in-school programming. They had some and some after-school programming. And then also when I started graduate school, there was a research project that I was working on, and a woman actually asked me to work with her classroom. So the combination of those two places was the first time of me getting experience inside of classrooms with young folks addressing issues and concerns that they may have by way of curriculum.
Okay. One of the interesting questions I always like to ask is, what has been your, especially over a 15-year window, what has been your greatest experiences as being a professor?
I think when people actually get it, right, and I know that's a super cliche, but when you see people being able to look at a concept, apply the concept, and actually reflect upon what went well with the concept and what went awry with the concept. So for me, that's getting it. So your ability to understand the construct, apply it to a real world issue, and then reflect on what went well and what didn't go well, and then in the next iteration, figure out what you'll do for improvements.
Wow, indeed. And I guess the inverse of that is, especially over a window of seeing it in an urban environment, what do you think have been your most difficult moments of being a college professor?
I think when people actually funneling through doubt, right? So a lot of times folks may feel as if they should not be here, or they feel as if they may not be able to do the work. So I think one of the things is really kind of demonstrating to folks that it's really not this kind of unattainable piece, but just taking a little bit of commitment or what have you. So this thing around kind of pushing through the doubt. And even in my own experience as a graduate student and an undergrad, in terms of being in hostile environments and constantly being reminded that you're not supposed to be here. So again, looking for those spaces that affirm not only are you supposed to be here, but you have things to contribute.
Definitely. And as an alum of this university, I can agree with that 400%.
Right.
And lastly, as you continue to go on, it's something I think every teacher and professor thinks about. What do you want your legacy to be when people look back and say the effect of Professor Stovall? What do you want that to be?
Right. You know, I don't think about it in terms of legacy, in terms of how folks will remember me, but if folks are actually able to take a concept or an issue, do some real world engagement with it in terms of applying constructs to address the issue, and then reflect on it, and then improve it moving down the line, I think that's more than enough, right? I'm not as concerned about the name that's attached to it, but really your ability to do that, because that will actually give us what we need long term if we're able to apply these concepts, and not just individually but collectively, to address any issue or concerns that comes down the line. So my own work being in schools, K-12 schools, you know, this thing around what are these collective processes that folks can engage to address these issues, like school closures, like school to prison pipeline, like overt and overrepresentation of youth of color in terms of quote unquote discipline issues. So, and actually addressing issues of curriculum in terms of relevant curriculum and tangible, tacit and applicable curriculum. So these issues that are we can address, but at the same time figuring out a way to do that collectively. So I think about that. If folks can actually engage that, that's more than enough from me.
All right, well, there you have it. Thank you again, Professor Stovall.
Yep.